Yeah, hello all, welcome to the session. So let's wait for a couple of more minutes and we'll start the session. Please add the number in the WhatsApp. Um, Vikram, actually, you do one thing. So can you go to this link? One second, let me add it in the chat. It's a WhatsApp group invite. Okay, so you just click on join chat. I send the link in the chat now. Just click on that link and you'll be redirected to this one. And if you're in a mobile, it will be directly going. Link not working. Okay, it should work. Just now I'm using, right? Fine then. Um, are you using WhatsApp web by any chance? Okay, then it should be fine. So if you click on join chat and use WhatsApp web, it should be going. Okay, if not, if you are really facing an issue, they can drop an email. Okay, so they will check it because I'm not the admin of that group, so I can't add you on actually. So you just check with them, they will help you out. Okay, so you just drop an email to this one, or yeah, so better do that. Okay, so yeah, let me do one thing. And I will also put a word with the team that okay, one of the member would reach out to them. Okay, fine. Today also is a demo session, so the recordings will be available in the YouTube channel. Okay, so yeah, I hope you guys can see the screen and can hear me clearly. So please confirm. Okay. And is there any doubts with the syllabus part? Please do let me know in the chat. Let's wait for one more minute and we'll start the session. Vikram, Durga, um, Shahan, Muhammad, right? So yeah. Okay, cool. Is there any doubts in the syllabus or you are having any questions? Anything you can let me know before starting the session. I, I guess it's already time. It's 8:05, so better let me start the session. So once again, welcome to the session, and we'll be seeing the demo of or the day two demo, okay, of the Linux administration. So, okay, what is Unix? Do we have to learn it separately? That's a good question, Mohammed. So the Unix or the Linux is based on Unix only, right? So you need not learn it separately. All the basic commands or the essential commands which we are using is a Unix command. Okay, so Linux is built on top of it. So we will see that. Okay, so yeah, but you need not learn it separately. Anyhow, it is the same. Okay, so yeah, fine. So once again, the general information is that's what like the first three sessions will be a free one. And today is the second session. So tomorrow's session will be also available in the YouTube channel. And yeah, from the fourth session, it will be only for the paid candidates. Okay. So yeah. And please don't do the bad shifting and just click on this link. And one of the member told that link is not working, but just try the link. And if you're not part of the WhatsApp group, please click on that because anything related to our course will be available in that WhatsApp group. Okay. So yeah. And at last, I'll be showing you how the graphy or the how to register for the course. Okay. And please reach out to the support team. You can reach out to this numbers or this mail ID in between these hours. So Monday to Saturday between 9 a.m. to 7 p.m. IST. Okay. So this one I'll explain at the last. And these are all the social media links. So yeah. So in today's session, uh, like yesterday itself, I told we'll be covering the booting procedure, right? So why it is important and how efficient you will be as a sysadmin once you understood the booting procedure, right? So yeah, we will go through this one for the day, and mostly this itself would take some time. If time permits, we'll be starting the installation. Okay, so yeah, fine. So what is booting procedure and why we need to understand it? As I told in yesterday's session, a booting procedure is a must, especially for a sysadmin, because if something went wrong in between or anywhere, you should be in a position to understand, okay, what went wrong and why it is happening, right? So that's the key. And first thing, why it is happening? Obviously, no one knows that until we are in that phase, right? So that's the thing. And that's what, like, we'll be seeing on like a basic view about what and all the stages there it or the system goes through before you're seeing the lock screen or your desktop screen like this, right? So what are all the things goes in the background? Okay, we'll be seeing that. Right. Um, so yeah. So now, first thing, what you do, the very basic thing is power on the system. So once you press power on or off button, so the first thing it will go through is a thing called as post or the process is post. Just power on self test, right? So why it goes through the post or what actually happens is let me show you one sec. So let me show you with the motherboard example. Fine. So this is the motherboard even actually I am using now. Okay, so the system is running on top of this motherboard. So what is actually here? Okay, so let me give a basic roundup of what it is all. Right. So first thing, yeah, this is your CPU spot, and this is your memory units, or this is DIMM slots, DIMM. Okay, so DIMM slots, and your GPU goes here, and this is where your storage will be. And many might already know that, but if not, there are two types of storage we use, or two types of uh, storage interface types. Okay, so one is SATA, and the other one is sorry, SATA and NVMe. Okay, so NVMe. And these two are the type of interfaces um, of disk interfaces. Okay, so means SATA is these are all SATA connections. Okay, and this is called as M.2 NVMe uh, SSD. And what is SSD and HDD? Obviously, you guys might know. If not, right, which is HDD SSD. So HDD full form is hard disk drive. SSD is solid state drive. Okay, so that's the thing. So you will store either in HDD or SSD, and which is the fastest? Obviously, SSD is the fastest because first thing, it is having the read and write speed is like around. So nowadays it's around 5 gigs per second, or much more than that if it is in the enterprise level. And the HDD is the still it's been used, and even in my case, it's there. So it is not that fast, but it's a reliable one, I would say. So this is the HDD. It's around 2 TB disk. So yeah, this is the SSD, and this is also SSD, but this is an NVMe SSD. So yeah. So what is that NVMe is? Non-volatile memory express, and SATA means serial ATA. Okay, so ATA is also one of the interface, and it is depreciated, so no one uses that now. And yeah, so this is your basic interface of your motherboard. So yeah, now you have the CMOS battery, and so you have multiple PCI Express card slots are there. And what else is there? So this is a VRAM slots, and this is actually a power 24-pin power connector. So why this is important is this is the hardware actually your first thing your commercial use. So this is a typical anyone can buy this motherboard, but in your work environment, sorry, in your data centers, it won't be like this interface, but all the major components will be there. It's not that okay, it will be having a lot of components, just the same thing, but there will be much more RAM slots will be there, and like the PCA slots will be like around six. So here it is five are there. So there will be around six or eight will be there if it is a enterprise grade motherboard, right? So the point is, based on the requirement, the motherboard changes or the components in the motherboard changes, and what is post. So coming back to post, each and every component, there will be a small ampere of current to be sent to everything to check that okay it is usable or it is working fine. Okay, so that's the thing about post and why it is important. Obviously, if let's say a RAM is faulty, RAM is there, or let's say you connected a CPU which is not compatible, obviously it won't work, right? So the first thing itself, we are checking that whether it is a hardware compatible, right? So obviously that must be checked at any cost. And let's say you connected a hard disk, but let's say the power unit is not connected to the hard disk. So that's a very a basic error many people does, and that's what like you can easily identify if it is not. Okay, so that's the post. And once hardware is all done, it will do one thing. There is actually here one LED will be there. Okay, so there are three LEDs. It is called as easy debug LED. And I'm just speaking about MSI boards. So most of the boards has one more thing as a error code. So there will be a small display here which shows the error code. So based on that error code, you will understand, okay, it is stuck in the CPU, or let's say your firmware itself is not updated, your BIOS itself is not able to boot, or some issue, right? So with that error code, you can diagnose. So it would be a hardware issue. Okay, so that's the thing about easy debug LED. So if all the LEDs are not, it will glow a amber light will be there. Okay, so if it is an amber light and it is stuck only in that phase, that means there is an issue with the memory. Here there will be memory, CPU, and your BIOS. Okay, so speaking about BIOS, so that's the next phase. So once everything is bootable, you'll be seeing in your screen, the very first thing is your BIOS. And what is BIOS? Right? So BIOS is a basic input output system. Okay. So this is the BIOS. And let me show you the BIOS of my system. So why I'm telling this in detail, actually, this even I can take it for another 4 more hours. So those many contents are there, but just a basic roundup of what is actually happening in while you try to boot, because it's a huge thing. Like if we talk about overclocking and so many things are there, right? So, but just a basic idea what actually happens in your system while you boot. Okay, so this is the BIOS screen in my case, since it is a gaming motherboard, it is having this kind of interface. Or in typical case, your interface will be like, I will show you that, okay? So, uh, like that, okay? It will be in blue color. Even in some or many laptops, it will be like that. Just a sec, let me show it now only. So what is BIOS? So BIOS will have all the, again, the same systems information. And here also one more time, you can check whether your memory is actually reflecting or what is your BIOS version. And the version actually matters, because if you're having very outdated version and you're trying to install a very new or latest graphics card or something which is not compatible, so it won't work. Okay, so there are many constraints like that, but nowadays it is much more compatible. Okay, so you need not worry, but it used to be like that. And you can see the real-time temperature and the fan speeds as well. Okay, so you have CPU fans and all is there, right? So you can see the real-time data about it. And the most important one is your actually you can change the frequency of your memory module, memory and CPU. So what is a frequency? So that's how you can control how speed you want it to run. Okay, so how efficient you want it to run. So by default, in your laptop also, if you go to Task Manager and just click on the CPU, you'll see this base clock speed as 3 gigs, so 3 gigahertz in my case. So in your case, it will be around 3 to, in some gaming laptops, it will be around 3.9 or 4, even some cases. So the point is, so that's how they can overclock it. So, but base frequency is this one. So where it will be useful is if you are a very heavy user or you are a power user, then this will be you matter this one, because let's say you're running a Premiere Pro or some editing software or some game rendering you're doing, right? So that needs a lot of CPU and GPU, right? So that's where this will be very useful. But if you're using it for normal browsing and basic stuff, it doesn't matter actually. So we won't reach to that level. But for memory, it is important. Okay, so in my case, I set a memory of only basic 2.6 gigahertz. Okay, so that's a basic one. And you see the 8 gigs only I have. So I can install around four DIMM slots I can install, right? So, but I installed only one. So yeah, okay. So, and the next important one in your, and first thing, actually, you can even change the frequency. Okay, so that's the important thing. So in your PC and all, mostly you can change. Okay, so there won't be any restriction, but in some laptops, it is not. Okay, so you can't change the frequency based on your requirement. Because if you change the frequency, you will use the full potential of it, and that will increase the load and it will drain a lot of battery. So it will backfire on you based on your battery usage. Okay, so that's the reason they will set in a very optimal level, which will be useful for anyone. Like the battery will be in a very optimal level. Okay, and coming back here, so the boot priority order is also the most important one in your BIOS screen. Okay, so what is boot priority order? Priority order or boot order, whatever you can call it. So this is where you will list which one to be booted. So in my case, I have one hard disk and two SSDs, and I have CD or DVD drive also, let's say. So I have like this setup. So which one to be booted? I need to mention to the system that then only it will take care, right? Or it will try to boot. So that's this order called as boot order. And obviously you have the full permission to change that. So this is what that order is. Okay. So this is the, so what is this U? So U means UEFI method. So yeah. Okay. So let's say you are trying to boot this HDD. So what actually happens next? So your HD hard disk will be booted, and in your hard disk, let me open a hard disk image. Okay. So because obviously many might know, but if you're not very new to this all, so just a basic information. So um, just looking for a good image of hard disk. Okay, so I got an image with hard disk and SSD. So what is actually, so this is how your hard disk will be. So actually there will be multiple disks in the hard disk, and there is at least 5 to 6 disks will be there based on your size. And this read-write head or IO head, this is called as, and it is a connected to the actuator arm. So it will move in very fast pace. Okay. So why it is moving? So actually your hard disk, how it works is, so it will be forming some ridges. Okay. So like this. Okay. So this is one, and sorry, this is zero, and this is one. Like that, the data will be. Okay. So it's like your frequency or anything you can call it, right? So your data will be like this, 1 and 0. Obviously, your system will be storing a data like that, and it will be actually etching the disk. Okay, so based on the requirement, it will be etching that, and that's what it is trying to read here. Okay, so it will be moving in a very fast pace, and in those days actually you can hear the spinning, right? So, and it will spin a lot actually those days, and this is the spindle. Okay, so which take care of the RPM at which it is spinning, and it will spin around. There are two standard RPMs, which is 5,400 RPM and 7,200 RPM. Okay, so yeah, there is even 10,000, but actually it is kind of discontinued. Okay, so that's how the basic hard disk works. Okay, so your IO head is very, very important. And that's the reason, since it is a moving part, if you should handle it a bit carefully. So if you drop it somewhere, this IO head will break the hard disk, right? So your data will be lost. So that's the reason people move to SSD. So SSD, you see, there is no moving parts. It's like your, how to say, your pen drive, but a huge one. Okay, so there is a lot of, it is a PC, just a PCB board with NAND with flash drives, and so many will be there. Okay, and the basic controller. But the issue with SSDs, there is a limited read and write. So you can use an SSD for 15, 20 years, whereas your hard disk can. So it will lose its firmware update. Actually, SSD, you need to update the firmwares. And it's a huge thing, actually. Okay. But the point is, no one will use that much time. So over the period of time, you will upgrade, right? So, but this is way faster compared to your hard disk since there is no moving parts, right? So that's your hard disk and SSD basic info about it, and why it is first time if you boot, it will spin. So what is actually happening is it is trying to look for the hard disk sector. Okay, so there are different sectors here, and it will look for which sector to be booted first. Okay, so that's important, right? So it can't randomly try to boot something. So that's the reason you might see an error like boot device not found, or like blank. Your screen will be blank. Why? Because it didn't found, or your hard disk is not reachable for the like while it is booting. or it is not configured for a boot. Okay, so there can be many factors, and that's the important thing, right? So it should be bootable. So let's say this is the boot sector, and your what is actually in that boot sector. That matters, right? So in boot sector, it will be grub screen will be there. So now what is a grub screen? So grub full form is Grand Unified Bootloader. Okay. So what is that? That's an interesting term, right? So which is a bootloader is an important one, which is trying to boot all the drivers and the disks based on the requirement. Okay. So let's say your hard disk is set and you're trying to boot the grub, or the system will try to boot the grub, and you have multiple OS in the same machine. Let's say just an and you can actually. So let's say you have Windows 11 and a RHEL, let's say 8. You have in the same hard disk. So so let's say you are trying to boot Windows for the like for the current time, you are trying to boot for Windows, and let's say after reboot, you are trying to boot for RHEL, but you can't boot both at the same time. That's the issue because both works in a different way, or how they approach your disks or your drivers. Let's say you have Bluetooth driver, right? Just an example, a Bluetooth driver will be works very differently when it comes to your Windows and RHEL, right? So that's the basic thing. Not only for Bluetooth, any components you have, it the way it approaches differs because both are obviously a different thing, right? So RHEL is or your Linux is a different OS, Windows is a different one, and you can actually have this dual boot setup in your base machine. Okay, so that's what actually this is the grub screen. Okay, so let's say grub. Oh, grub screen for Windows. Yeah. So you might have seen this GNU grub version. You have Ubuntu Windows 7, you see, in this case. And in your Windows, you might have seen like this blue color, which one to be booted. So this is the grub screen of Windows. Okay, and now you might ask, okay, I don't have multiple OS. Still, will my system will go through grub? Obviously, yes, but it will have only one. Okay, so instead of multiple, it will have only one. You see, only Ubuntu is there. You're getting the point, right? So like that, it's an important screen because moving forward, which one to be booted? So that's the dilemma of your system, right? If it have only one, still it will look for okay, which one to be booted. So that's the thing you see. Endeavor OS is it's a Linux like distro, and you have Windows also. Yeah, right. So yeah, I'm not sure about which like grub screen this is, but yeah, that's how grub screen works, and many grub screens are there out in the market. Okay. And so, like, let's say once you selected the grub screen, what would be the next one? And you selected, let's say, RHEL, right? So the next one would be your kernel, the most important one, as I told in the yesterday session. And that's the first thing, or it's like the first seed, like which initiated the whole Linux concept itself, because the kernel is what being derived from Minix. Okay, so Minix is a previous version of not Linux. It's a basic OS about sorry using Unix. Okay, so all these OS will have a Unix kernel, and Linux what it does is it will be an optimal version of it, the kernel. Okay, and that's the thing. So if you figure out how to create a kernel, you're like halfway through. So remaining parts are like your how like your driver compatibility and those things you need to figure out. But let's say you have the basic idea about a kernel, you're halfway through, right? So that's what Linux or Linus Torvalds done. Okay, so he created his own version of Minix-based kernel, and that's the thing. And what is actually here is here this information. It's not. It's a huge thing actually. So I'm just giving a basic idea. So driver info, your important libraries. So what is a library? I will come back to that. And what else is there? Like your important binaries is also there. Okay, so we will see that. And so many things it will be having. So let's say in our case, we will be installing a GUI, right? So it will even load the GUI elements and all. It will be loading. Okay, so all these things will be happening in your kernel. And let's say if a kernel is not bootable or its a kernel is corrupted in some way, right? So what would happen? So that's where you will do a kernel panic, it is called as, okay? And you will be the first person, or you will be the only person having the privilege to um like how to say troubleshoot it. Okay, so that's the thing, and it's the very first process. You see, first program to be executed, right? So which is your next process. It is called as init. Okay, so let's say kernel is figured out that okay, this process should be next. Okay, and there is no issue with your kernel. What would be the next one? You have these many levels, or you can call it anything. Okay, so you can call it different modes or levels, anything. But the point is, this init is it will go through this. Obviously, it will go through this. Okay, so no other choice, and it is a called as init tab or init table. Okay, and in your Windows also, it's similar to this. It is called as sysconfig. So you just go to start and type system configuration and go to boot. You have similar or almost same. One option is there. Okay. So first thing I will go through these all and we'll compare it with Windows. Okay. So first thing, if you type init 0, and I hope my machine is booted. Okay. So yeah, one sec. Let me boot it. And I don't worry about these all. I'll be explaining you. So just for example, I'm giving you. So if I just types init 0, that's it. My machine will shut down. So that's how it's a signal actually, or it's a state. Okay. So if I done that, well, it will send a signal to the OS that okay, I'm going to shut down like that, and your kernel will start the shutdown process, and it will actually shut down. Right. So that's what happens in all this state. It is init 0 is for shutdown, and how about init 1? So 0 is shutdown. I mentioned as halt there, both the same. So how about init one? So this is an interesting one, which is called as single user mode or emergency mode. Okay, so that's uh, the init one. So what is single user mode? So let me give a basic idea. So this is a actually this view is called as console view. Okay, why? Because I can edit or anything I can do with this VM or this virtual machine, right? I can change all the parameters, and only I have the privilege to do this, right? So like let's say if I power on and I give the access to someone, they can only do a remote access, but this is where it is hosted, right? So that's the reason this is a console view, and it is a single user mode actually as of now, because I didn't share my IP with anyone, right? And if I done also, that's what, like they can access it remotely rather than the actual mission. So that's the thing. And we will be actually going to this emergency mode. So that is also a single user mode. Okay, so only the host can do it. And how about in your work environment? Will you go to the single user mode? Actually, no. Why? Because your all your machines won't be in your premise, right? So your office premise, obviously, there won't be a data center. It will be located in some, let's say, some you're working in some bank. It will be in some Japan, Russia, or some cold countries, right? So why? Because that's the tax rate or anything is cheaper out there. So the point is, your field engineer will have the console view and he can launch the single user mode. We will be discussing this one bit more extended later, but the point is that's the kernel view or your single user mode. It is before your boot, right? So that's the thing. Okay, so the next one is init2. So this is a multi-user. So that's an interesting term, right? So why? Because you actually can't open multiple sessions in your Windows, which is absurd, right? But that's true. And this is the grub screen actually. So of our mission or our realm. Okay. So now it is actually loading the kernel and all the booting process will be loaded. So I have multiple disks. So that's the reason it is taking some time. But yeah, you see, so many components it will load. And this is the kernel phase. So the next phase is which interface or which init phase it is. So in my case, I am using init 5 and it will start booting it. Okay, so that's it. And so what is multi-user? So like you can open multiple sessions of a same user. And that's a normal thing, and it must be like that, right? So let's say you're opening a session of administrator in your machine of the same server. And one of your colleague is also trying to open, let's say a Windows server. Actually, it won't allow. Okay, so it will terminate the previous session and it will be allowing the other user. So which is like in terms of a sysadmin way, it is a very bad thing, right? So that's the reason in Linux, it's actually multi-user operating system, which means n number of sessions you can open for a same user. Okay, so let me show you that. And this installation and all, don't worry about it. I will explain you how to install each and everything. But please be patient. Okay, so that's the thing, because these knowledge is necessary. Okay, so that's the thing. So if I open a terminal for root user, and root user is, by the way, uh, like the administrator. Okay, so I will open new tab. You see, again root user, but both are different sessions. If I open one more tab, same root user, and I can open multiple remote sessions also for the same server. Okay, so you see root user. So the point is you can have multiple sessions of the same user, and in backend actually it is happening, which is called as TTY. Okay, so each and every session is having its own TTY. You will see what is that in later sessions. Okay, so but the point is it is a multi-user mission and without NFS. So this init2 means without NFS or without network. Okay, so I just mentioned as NFS here, but actually it is without network, which means your network drivers won't be loaded. So I have my Wi-Fi and my Ethernet drivers will be there, right? So if I try to do init2, it won't even have these drivers loaded. So even though it is connected to the like your Ethernet port is connected, it won't work because there is no driver or the interface here, right? So that's the init2. Mostly we won't use this actually. So if there is any issue with your network or anything you need to diagnose, you will try this and diagnose that. And like this is the last thing we will try to use actually init2. And init3 is the most used one actually. Okay, so which is your CLI mode. So init2 is actually multi-user without network. 3 means multi-user with network, or it is a CLI version. Okay, so you are not loading the UI. So here, in if it is init3, and this is the typical one in your work environment, it will be init3. So it will be like only CLI. There is no GUI elements there, and 4 is not used. Okay, so you can ignore that. And 5. So what is 5? It is a GUI or Xlab. Okay, so what is this? So if you check in this one and type RAM level, you see N5. Okay, so that's this one. Your GUI element will be loaded in init 5, and this is actually your GUI of your Red. Okay, so it won't be that how to say that colorful like your Windows, but it does all the things. Okay, so it has multiple tabs you can open, and yeah, so most of the basic functionalities will be there, but it won't be that intuitive, and so this store won't have multiple applications like we do in Windows. So it will have few important one only will be there. Okay, but yeah, the point is GUI will be loaded if it is init 5. And the last one is an interesting one, which is init 6. If you do that, it will reboot your machine. So let's try that. Just type init 6, enter. So now it will do the, it will send a signal to the kernel to initiate the reboot. You see, it rebooted. That's it. And this is the again the grub script. Okay, so yeah, literally that's your init tab. And you see here itself I would have mentioned. Typically, you would set the default run level as 3 or 5. Like 99% it will be either 3 or 5. Okay, so what is then a run level? Okay, so both are actually same. And one sec, let me show you the Windows equivalent for this one, which is called as advanced boot option. So for sure, you might have seen this screen. One sec, let me show that. If you tried accidentally or if you intentionally tried 3 times um, like this, right? So you might have end up in this screen called as advanced options. In your laptop, if you unintentionally you made a restart, like uninterrupted restart or somewhere, you can go to this advanced options. What is this advanced option is? Actually, you can control the way it is booting based on this command prompt. You can send some commands, and you have if your startup is actually having issue, you can do a startup with there. It doesn't do much actually nowadays. And you have system restore point. If you have, you can restore it. But the point is, in this advanced options, you have one more startup settings will be there. Okay, so this startup settings is very, very important, and you can compare this with this one. So you see, um, this one, right? So you see single user mode, and we have enable safe mode. Okay, so this is exactly your single user mode and safe mode with network. Okay, so that's what your init 3 and safe mode with command prompt, which actually doesn't have network init 6. Okay, and few other modes are there, but you can compare these all, right? And same thing goes here also. So you see safe boot minimal means it actually doesn't have all the apps you have, right? So all these apps won't be there. Only the base bare minimum will be there, and that's the minimal option. And if you select network, it will boot along with the network drive. And you have one more interesting one, which is this checkbox. If you do no GUI boot, so which means it will only boot and show you the command prompt. Only that will be there. Okay, so and you can have like base video and boot log also you can store your boot information. All the things are there. But the point is, this is the equivalent to your init in your Windows. Okay, so not the same thing, but it's you can compare it with the safe mode and all. Okay, so that's the thing. And your next option, which is init is done. Let me copy paste these one. And your next phase is run level. And that's the last actually. So what is run level and why it is important? So like you confirm that, okay, yeah, I'm going to do a basic boot like init 3 I'm going to do. So what next? So using init-tree, you have multiple startup applications will be there. So in your Windows, you have these all, right? So I have Canva, some Skype, or so many things are there. But these all boot along with my OS, right? So that's the thing. And same thing you can do in your Linux also, which is run level. Okay, so and it's the same thing. All the levels will be there. You see, yeah. So all the levels will be there, and this is the path. So etc rc.d. So don't worry about this path. So I'll be explaining what is this path and all. But the point is, this is the if you store, let's say, same VMware itself. Let's take an example. So if you stored /VMware here, your VMware.exe will be launched. Okay, so just for an example. So like that, you have all the bootable softwares you can, um, or sorry, bootable executables you can store here. Or you have one more important part which is called as etc init.d. Okay, so you can store it here also, the same path. So mostly we will prefer etc init.d, not this one, but it depends actually. It depends on each company. But the point is, you can do like this. So I given a just a Windows example of the exe, but exe doesn't work in the Linux. Okay, so yeah. And lastly, your lock screen, right? So that's the this screen. This is your lock screen. Okay, so yeah. Is there any doubts, anyone? And I'm just giving a very basic idea about this one. Okay, so that's the disclaimer because it's a huge thing. We can go at least 2 to 3 hours only in BIOS and this your hard disk, and this is actually called as MBR. Okay, so MBR and GPT. So both are this partition size. So what is that? That's a new term, right? So MBR and GPT. So this GPT is called as GUID partition table, and MBR means it is master boot record. So what is that? So I intentionally kept this at the last. Why? Because so this needs a bit more explanation. Okay, so the point is your your Windows. First, we will talk about Windows because easily you can understand this one. So just go to your start menu, just right click disk management, and you will end up in the screen. Right click in one of your disks, properties, go to volumes. You see partition style as GUID partition table. So what is the GPT and why Windows has only GPT nowadays, and why in Linux it is MBR. So for this you need to understand how a hard disk sectors or hard disk partitions works. Okay, so I hope I get a good image on that. So yeah, you're actually what we do is we do a simple partitions like this, right? In your Windows, but actually backend it will store it in different sectors. Like it's an imaginary sectors only. Obviously, you can extend it. Yeah, this is a good image. Okay, so you have multiple. So this is your hard disk. Okay, now you might ask, okay, will this concept be the same for SSD? Because there is no track, there is no sector, nothing will be there, right? So because your SSD works in a very different way, but yeah, your tracks concepts will be there, or the sectors will be there, but the way it is designed will be a bit different. Or that's the thing, right? So in your hard disk, it works in a very different way. In your SSD, it will be a different one. But the point is, let's take a hard disk example. Okay, so it is easy for you also to understand it because and any hard disk if you take, there will be multiple sectors. Okay, so again, so this sectors or how many sectors can be. So these all will be decided based on which partition style you're taking, right? So your MBR or GPT is the one which will decide. Okay, so if it is GPT, it has many sectors. If it is MBR, it will be bit limited. Why? Because MBR is a partition style which supports legacy servers. So what is a legacy servers or legacy machines, whatever you can call it? So any machines which is like 20, 30 years old, right? So those are like a very old machines and it supports very old OS also because the hardware, everything will be an old one, right? So that's like it's a very old partition style. So that's the reason it is compatible with everything. And our Linux is also running or it mostly has MBR only. Okay. Obviously, you can make it to GPT, but many prefer MBR only. Okay. And why Windows particularly pushes GPT? Because actually there is a very good benefits with GPT and it is the latest one. Latest in the sense it's also old one, but compared to MBR, it is latest. Okay. So what is GPT is actually your partition style or you're having multiple primary partitions. So now there is a concept called as primary and extended partitions. So that one we will discuss actually in extent while we do the disk management. But the point is using GPT, you can create, let me mention as Windows machines, you can take it. And you have for GPT, you can create 128 primary partitions. And for MBR, you can create only 4 primary partitions. And now you might ask, okay, then what else, right? So you have the third or the fourth partition will become as a logical partition, and still you can achieve or you can create multiple partitions in NBR also, but you need to involve the logical partitions. But in GPT, you won't run out of primary partitions, right? So that's the thing. And what is a primary partition? It's just like your this. This is your a simple any partition. You can take it. So in my case, these two are same disk. Okay, so these two are in a single disk, two partitions are there, right? So like that, you can create four only in a single disk. In if it is MBR, but in GPT, you can create 128 primary partitions out of same disk. Okay, so that's a huge thing, and yeah, that's the basic difference between both, and many are there. But yeah, so the point is MBR is what preferred in your Linux. Okay. And yeah, so that would sum up your booting procedure. And is there any doubts, anyone? So please feel free to ask any basic doubt also, because yeah, and this is how you can register for the course. Okay, so once you are fine with my way of approach, you can register, and from next or once we set up your missions, it will be purely practice based only. So you need not worry about it. And we will crack the exam. Okay, so I didn't show you yesterday the exams question paper, and that is you can feel free to use it. So you just go to this drive link, or you just type bit.ly/Linux LL1. Okay, so either of this link will redirect you to my installation or this Linux resource. Okay. So here you have this last one, you see, RHCSAQ. So this is the question paper, by the way. So you have these many questions in your exam. Okay. And we will discuss and solve all the questions. So you need not worry about these all also. So that's what. If you are planning for a career change or you're going to start your career, this certification is very, very important, especially in your resume. It has its own credibility. Trust me. Okay. So yeah. And installation. So it's already time. So better let's see the installation tomorrow. Okay. Actually, I opened AWS and those things. So yeah, fine. Oh, will there be any use of booting process? So this booting process is not useful if it is a cloud, but actually in cloud also it will be in backend, it will happen all this. Okay. So it's not that, okay, if it is cloud, but you need not worry about it because it's the AWS will take care of it. Let's say AWS or anyone. So, but in the backend, it will happen all these options. It will happen within seconds because they are using the top end. Like if it is SSD means they will use Samsung or some industry grade SSDs. Okay, so it's that's the reason your cloud will be instantly you'll be using the cloud because that's what like it will be already ready state. Okay, so they'll just need to provision it to your account, right? It will happen within seconds. Okay, so yeah, but actually you need to understand this, and still companies prefer um, like not every company, but let's say BFSI, mainly your banks and all, right? So those all prefer like a physical server. So because you have all the control over your physical server, right? So that's the reason you must know these all. And I just it's a tip of iceberg actually. It's huge thing. I just given a very basic idea about it. Okay, so yeah. But yeah, if it is a cloud, you need not worry too much about this. Only once it is booted, if it is not detected, then you need to reach out to the AWS support or someone. But yeah, and try to if you are having issue with the your like let's say launching or any VMware issue, please try to use Google Cloud. I suggest Google Cloud because they're giving $300 for free as a credit. Okay, so just to experience their application or their platform, they're crediting in the um, your portal. Okay, so this is the portal. So in my case, I exhausted it actually, but in your case, you will see that $300, which is equivalent to 24,000 or something INR. So it will show you that. So why? Because if you click on any VMs and all, from that credit only it will be using. So, and the major issue with this concept is it is only till 90 days, which is like 3 months. So only till that you can use that. And yeah, so that is more than enough for our sessions. And the best thing is, since it is Google account, you can create one more account and use the same credit card, and you can again sign in for another 90 days. Okay, so but the point is you can make use of this $300 and experiment with a lot of options are there. Like Kubernetes is there, and their BigQuery is there, USB actually. So you can experiment with their tools. But the point is, as of now, our sessions will be focusing on the basic VM and those things. So yeah, as a lab, this is a good one, GCP. Yeah, you need to give the credit card and all with. Yeah, so for sure you need to give the payment because let's say they are giving the credit for not for everything. So simply you can't experiment everything. Only few services, around 25 services you can experiment. Okay, so remaining you must pay, and actually you won't pay individually. It will be automatically incurred from your credit card. So every month it will send you a notification that okay, you are exhausting your credit or something. And this is the same thing goes for AWS. AWS also has a 1 year of this one free account or free tier, you can call it. Okay, so this is also having this has even more services. Around 2,000 services are there. Okay, so it's a huge thing. So, but yeah, so we obviously concentrate on EC2 and VPC and those things. So yeah, and you can even mention these all in your resume also. Okay, obviously it's a kind of saturated, like many have the certifications, but still it's a good thing to have in your resume. You are any one of the cloud because already many companies migrated to cloud or in the verge of migrating. So yeah, yeah. Any doubts, anyone? And for AWS, actually, you can use debit card also. So if you are our Visa or RuPay actually doesn't work. Mastercard and Visa pay gateways works actually in AWS. But in GCP, you must give credit card. No other debit card doesn't work. And actually, one like you can anyhow we will be using only one or two services, right? So you need not worry. And this EC2 is also the same as your VM. Just it is called as EC2. So yeah, and EC2 full form is Elastic Cloud Compute. And AWS is notorious of having this kind of weird names to it. All the service like Glacier and so many things. But in GCP, it's like a normal one. All the names will be easily, you can understand what it is, the services. So yeah. So in next session, means tomorrow we'll be doing only the installation part. So please do feel free to join. And it's a recording session and it will be available in the YouTube channel. Okay. And even today's session will be available there. So yeah, I guess it's already time, guys. So any doubts? If not, we can wind up the session. Okay, so I guess there is no doubts. So yeah, please go through the syllabus, which is already in the portal. Okay, so in our Logic Labs portal. So you just go through there and yeah, any doubts, please drop an email also. It will be responded. Fine. So let me stop the recording and thanks all for joining. Have a great day. Let's see you in tomorrow's session. Okay, bye-bye.